Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of the iPPi Insider. We've been joined by guests Kieran Mulqueen from the Crazy House Prices page with over 22,000 followers, 68% women, 32% men, and 48% in Dublin. Kieran, you're very welcome. How are you keeping?
Good, Kenneth. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's all good with the pages. The page is kind of taken off over the last few months. I think with more people during lockdown have more time scrolling on their phones and what have you.
Brilliant. So let's go into some of the hot topics at the moment. Obviously, there's a lot in the news about the property market and about where it's going with some of the schemes that are being put in place. What's your opinion on as a let's say a first time buyer? What are some of the solutions you would put in play? Obviously, you're seeing it first time.
Yeah, I suppose I'm in the trenches, and with the page being the way it is, I've kind of become some form of agony uncle for a lot of people. I think they tend to send me in their worries, their issues, what they're going through, and it's mostly the kind of similar stuff to what I'm going through now. I'm in a fortunate position. I'm way more fortunate than a lot of other people. There could be people who are in negative equity. There could be people who previously owned a home and they've been divorced or whatever, or people stuck in a rent trap and all that kind of stuff. So so I do empathize with people, and I suppose I think there are a number of solutions. I think there are a number of things that can be done, but I think everybody is just so disheartened with lockdown on top of prices going through the roof, and there just doesn't really seem to be any respite there. So I suppose with the page, I tend to just kind of curate a lot of the stuff I'm seeing. I tend to relay a lot of the messages that people are sending in, and I have a pretty good insight as to what's going on.
Your ear is very much firmly on the ground as to listings that are being appeared, and there definitely is integrity throughout. Location being one, but some of the sort of more hard-hitting issues that we see in Ireland across the board. I saw you posted David McWilliams's podcast, which was a good listen, as something a simple economic model to follow. What do you believe is the sort of the lower hanging stuff that we could really hit off as a country, and some of the ministers could put in place?
Yeah. You nailed it there with the low hanging fruit. Like, I think there is low hanging fruit that can be taken. The schemes that are putting in now, the Help to Buy and the proposed shared equity scheme. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of the shared equity scheme. I know it's going to be, I was just on a call with the Minister for Housing today. It's going to be a little bit different to the variant in England or in the UK, which has raised prices. But we do know the Help to Buy has raised prices across the board in all new builds. So they're more demand side schemes, which aren't working in a market when it's completely undersupplied. Pent up demand is huge. There's a lot of savings there, and people are panicking, I think, is the main thing. People are just really, really panicking. I saw a house today. Someone sent me in Artane, was up for 390, or I think 390,000 or 400,000, and it's now sale agree, or the top bid now is 650,000 for a 3-bed in Artane with the attic done. So people are panicking. I don't know where the cash is coming from, but in terms of like what can be done, I think, and I did say this to the minister today, I think the obvious one, and it's almost so easy and so obvious that it seems too good to be true, but that would just be a vacant property tax. And looking even around me, I'm in Portobello, within a 200-meter radius around me, there's about 50 houses that are vacant. The highest estimates are around 35,000 vacant properties in Dublin alone. That would make a massive, massive dent in the crisis. That would bring down prices with supply going up and all that. So the vacant property tax, I think, is the most obvious one, the easiest one. And a lot of people are beating that drum now. Like you mentioned, David McWilliams, I know he's a big advocate of it, and he is very against dereliction. He sees it as a form of as wealth, because if somebody is wealthy enough to sit on a property that's gone derelict, it shows how much wealth they have. So the property tax thing, I think, is the vacant property tax is the most obvious, where if it's not somebody's if it's not somebody's primary residence, you just tax them until it's used. It's either rented out, or if the obvious issue with this is the fair deal scheme with nursing homes and older people, and you can't rent it out and all that kind of stuff. But it's still only a fraction as to the overall number of vacant properties. And to me, that's just the most obvious one among plenty of other possible solutions.
And in terms of sort of the transition of and challenges that we've had over since March, like we're back into another lockdown. We've been in a lockdown for a year now. You know, we're about to the markets. There's a huge amount of pent up demand from what we can see and with the reports that are coming out. A little misskewed, some accurate. But you know, you look at that 35,000 vacant properties in Dublin alone. That would sort out the homeless crisis. That would sort out half the first time buyers being able to go out and actually purchase a property and not live under the same roof as their parents. As a first time buyer yourself, you know, what are you finding your biggest pain point?
Prices, yeah, definitely prices and supply, and it's very nuanced. Any little road, even down to the particular road in Dublin. Dublin it's like each little road and each little area is its own kind of microcosm of the entire property market. So, for instance, like we were bidding on a house in an area that we really want. We're kind of honed in on two different areas that we want to be in, and it's just the properties don't come up that often there. And there was one house up, and because there's only one house and that area is in demand, well, that house is going to go for mad money. Whereas if there were two houses there, there's a bit more supply. If there were three or four houses there, like right down to one street, you know, that even four houses on one street brings the price down because there's more supply there. Like there's a good few examples of that there's a few streets in Rialto now at the moment where one house was up and it was up on its own for 450, and then three of the same type of houses went up and they all went up for 395. So now they're all up for 395. So the one that was 450 is now for 395. That kind of thing, like it's small little additions like that would make a huge difference, and that's where the vacant kind of property thing would come in. And if they put in, say, 3% levy, let's say the value of the property, maybe it's derelict, it's worth about 250,000. Put in a 3% levy on that, the owner of that property is going to have to pay $7,500 a year, or else shift it, sell it, if they can't afford to do it up themselves and rent it out. So you'll get a lot of people say, oh, well, I'm an accidental landlord, I inherited this and I didn't want it and blah, blah, blah. Well, then just sell it. Like, do you know what I mean? If it's property investment is an investment. And I feel like with property investors, they feel like they have this God-given kind of right to make money from it, you know, whereas it's like any other investment. It may go wrong, it may go well, but you're not automatically entitled to be making money out of it. And I think the financialization of property in Ireland is probably the biggest issue that our generation has had, where our parents were able to buy a house in a good area for maybe one or two times a single income. We're looking at a house in the same area might be 20 times a single income, an average income. So it's just, we've generated this kind of wealth inequality through housing and this obsession with making money from houses, and that's led by government policy with NAMA, all the land with NAMA, selling that off to private hedge funds, most of the Americans, the REITs, the real estate investment trusts. Like 95% of all apartments last year were bought by build to rent. So 5% were available for people to purchase. 95% are for rent, and they can sit on, and the Minister for Housing agreed with me on this, and he actually gave me this figure, they can sit on 50% of them vacant because they have the money and they don't want to drop the rents, because if they drop the rents, they can only increase them by 4% a year. So it will take them too long to get it back up to where they need to be making the money. So they will sit on those and keep that kind of, that faux kind of inflated rental price there, where they're just sitting there empty.
So if you look at some of the media and how the media are putting a massive backdrop on everything that's going on with trends, and you know, if you look at the last 3 years, I know you were plugging some of the reports that we had put out. And thanks again for that. You know, who are the players here? You know, there's people saying, you know, don't listen to estate agents. I think that's absolute, you know, I think that's nonsense, and I won't listen to it, because they're the ones that are setting, you know, there's a lot of pent up demand, but at the same point, you price a property at an optimum level, you will get market price. The ones that are selling it, you know, underpricing, creating a huge amount of demand. You know, it's within the valuation space. What do you believe, Kieran, is really going to be a turning point for this? Because I see it as a huge problem. We're back in 2008. We haven't learned from what's going on. There's funds coming in. They're purchasing a massive amount of units, and again, 35,000 properties vacant. Like, that's no small figure, and that's a problem. No. How much homelessness do we have on our streets? We've got over 5,000 people who are homeless, not able to afford a house. You know, you look at Vancouver. Why can't we follow suit of these cities that have put in place, you know, actual systems and schemes that deal with these crises? We're going through a pandemic. There's enough problems. You know, where do you see I know you shared the Irish Times article there by Owen Burke this morning. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I had to read it, that one. And he made a good point in it. You know, estate agents didn't see the collapse in 2007. They didn't see the boom again in 2013. They didn't predict these things. And look, nobody gives estate agents more grief than I do on my page. But like, they're putting the price out, and they're not controlling the market. You know, people are going to pay what they're going to pay. It's going to come down to lending. It's going to come down to where the cash is coming from, whether it's investors, whether it's councils outbidding first-time buyers or whatever. I think a solution to it could be, now I don't know what the legal kind of stance is on this, but like, if we could prioritize kind of first-time buyers and prioritize right sizers. So whether that's somebody who is in a house that's too big for them, or they're in a house that's too small for them, and prioritize them to right size to a house that suits them, so they free up their house for somebody else to move into, that kind of thing. And just do not let investors or developers buy up these properties. If we could prioritize first-time buyers and right sizers, those buying their first or second home, and for it to be their primary residence rather than somebody buying a second or a third home, I think that would be a simple solution to that. But I suppose I'm not really answering your question about the article.
I just think in terms to kind of the point, I just think it's baffling, and we were discussing it this morning, that the agents are being pointed fingers here at a paper that is, you know, very reliant on estate agents. It, you know, owns a property portal, has a property piece every Sunday. It's bizarre, in my opinion, to see something like that happen, because it's economics. At the end of the day, it's down into what is the correct information to price properties at an optimum level and get people into houses. Like, let's be honest, there's still people at the end of the day. They still are doing a job that this country needs, especially in a pandemic, when we see multiple new multinational companies coming in, creating a huge amount of jobs, whether it's working from home or in-house. I think it's shocking to see something like that come out of it, and to point the finger at anyone other than the people who are setting the rates within these areas. Like, when was the last time rates had changed in specific councils? And I'm calling people out here. You know, when was the last time that they had changed? Because that's the fundamental of where I can see it. That's the root cause of this. There's not enough accurate information at that level so that the rates can either go down or go up. It's just set. It's black and white. It's written it's never changed. Yeah. And I think it's an educational piece. And I know I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. It's educating these guys into, hang on a minute, if we have the actual information here of where the problem is, then we can put procedures in play. There is good practice out there, and I'm seeing it amongst a lot of agents. There is good practice. Yes, of course, you're going to have ones that are in it transactionally, but there's a lot of people in it for the goodness. And I know we spoke about this before. If we kind of slightly move the needle, because I know we could go down into a rabbit hole on the media side. How are you finding the whole the whole process within Crazy House Prices? It's obviously ballooned in the last 2-3 months.
Yeah.
With your traction, you're probably getting more hits than some of the portals now at this stage.
Yeah. I put one up there the other day in Chapel Elizabeth with a shower on the top of the stairs, and I think I just checked the insights on it today, and it's got like 37,000 hits already. So yeah, it's
Any
I
offers
suppose
yet?
on the house. I'm sure there will be. I'm sure there will be, but I suppose I'm seeing a bit. I'm just seeing a bit of madness everywhere. To be honest, I'm seeing all sorts coming in, and people sending me a lot of people just getting disheartened by being outbid, cash buyers, a lot of that. So that's the main thing that's getting sent into me. But just people are disheartened, and I get it. I feel the same myself. And to be honest, like we were bidding on a place, and then we were trying to bid on another place, and we can't put a bid in until we see it in person. And but then the rules seem to have changed. Now they are accepting bids without people seeing them in person. And to be honest, it's all gotten so insane. And I do honestly think we'll be looking back at January, February 2021. I think when it comes to January, February 2022, we'll be looking back at this month and last month and just be saying, what were we thinking? What were people thinking? Putting in an offer 170,000 over asking, and they haven't even stepped foot inside the property. No matter how well you know the area, no matter how well you know the house, like you need to have a feel for it. Things can be not in photos. Like you need to. There could be subsidence. There could be any sort of issues. Now I know you're backed down by, obviously there's going to be a survey and stuff. So they're only sale agreed. So they may fall through. And I do think come March, once all these surveys are done, I do think a lot of them will fall through. And you'd be hopeful that a bank won't lend on a house that's 150 grand overpriced. But you just don't know. Like I'm gotten to the point now where I'm kind of just like, look, I'm going to shut up shop here. I'm just going to hold out for another kind of maybe 6, maybe 12 months, and look at it then, and hope that the prices come down a little bit, which I do think they will. I can't see prices continue to go up the way they are, with all the insecurity of jobs, insecurity in the market, insecurity in the stock market in the US. Walk down Grafton Street, have a look at how many commercial property premises on Grafton Street are vacant. Like that, I think the commercial side of things is really, really struggling at the moment, unless you're in kind of like a big warehouse out in the middle of nowhere. Like it's the retail stuff is struggling. Just walk through town. Like we're in Portobello, so I'm very close to town. We go for a walk and around. So many places are empty. Businesses are shutting down. Pubs will be closed for a year. All that kind of stuff. I think we're not really looking. That will have an impact. It has to have an impact with confidence in the market. I think it may just take one of these massive American hedge funds or investment funds or REITs to pull the plug and be like, look, we're getting out now. We think the market has peaked, and then there could be a domino effect. And now I could be totally wrong. I haven't a clue. Like, I don't know.
I think you've got a fair idea, Kieran. Let's be honest. You're seeing a lot of what's being put on the market. You're then analyzing it yourself. You're kind of a buffer between the agent and the first time buyer, and a voice, and that's needed. Put it this way, you look at the traction you're getting on some of your votes. It's probably more than some of the, you were telling me figures there last week. It's probably more some of the ballots that people are did I vote in the last election? Who would I vote for? Who is there that's actually going to put things in place for us, for first time buyers, or even if you wanted to, there's guys in the UK who are purchasing properties at 23, 24, 25, and they have rental incomes coming through, and they have them rented, or they have, house sharing schemes. Just kind of going on to your points there, what would some of your top tips, you don't have to give 10, but what would you, let's say 5 top tips for first time buyers at the moment?
First thing I do is Well, I suppose it'll depend if they're looking for a new build. Like, there's a big difference, I suppose, for a first-time buyer if they're buying a new build and if they're buying a second-hand. I don't get the second-hand property title because sure, it could be fifth, sixth-hand or whatever, but an old house rather than a new build. Um, with the new build stuff, they've all those schemes. They have to buy that kind of thing. They could do maybe the rebuilding Ireland, all that kind of stuff. But I suppose maybe focusing on people that maybe aren't looking for a new build, because I did a poll on my page and say so 86% on the now about 13 or 14,000 people answered the poll, and 86% of those were first time buyers, and about 75% of them are looking for old homes, so not new builds, just because most of them are in Dublin, and like the cheapest new build near me is 850,000 euros. So that's the top 0.1% kind of stuff. Nobody's buying them other than the rich. So that's not really where I'm looking. But most people were looking, 88% were looking for under 500,000 euro homes. So for them, my tips would be, first thing is figure out what the other homes have sold for. And I use iPPi for this. It's massively helpful for me in terms of what to bid. So in that house we were bidding on, we can technically afford to go higher. But from me doing my research using iPPi and using the platform, I know that house is not worth what the highest bid is at the moment. And I know how much the house needs done to it. It needs at least 120,000 put in, it doesn't even have heating. So it's already going to be 10 grand over the market rate, then 120. So it's 130 grand more than it would be valued at if it was turnkey. So it's a terrible investment. So I just pulled out, even though I could have gone higher, I could have bid higher, but I had a number in my head. So that's the first tip would be know what the house is sold for nearby. Second would be have your max bid, whether or not you can go more than that. Have your max bid and stick to it. Don't get caught up in that bidding war. It's a mistake that so many people make, and it just drives all the prices up then, and you're stuck then regretting it for years, because maybe the prices could go down next year and then you're thinking, geez, I paid 30 grand more than I should have there. But then the other side of that is, if it's a home that you plan on being in forever, if it's your forever home, well, then I don't think price fluctuations come into it. So that's the other side of it. But yeah, know what other houses sold for. Have a number in mind, and then also talk to somebody if it's going to need work. Talk to a surveyor, talk to a builder, or somebody that will give you a kind of bit of an insight as to how much it's going to cost. If it's complete fixer upper, you could be looking at 2 grand a square meter. You're buying a 90 square meter home, you're looking at 180 grand there to get it up to where you want it. So you need to factor that into your bids as well. I think most people know the obvious stuff of, location, and think of the amenities and the transport and stuff like that. Like, can you see yourself living in it long term? Can all that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, just know your fit. Do your research. That's the main thing. Do your research. Know what they sell for. Have a bid in mind. Don't go above it. Know how much it's going to cost to do it up, and make sure you have your savings there. Don't dip into your savings. Don't. There's loads of finance tips. I won't even go down that route. But just make sure you have your savings there, and you're not have your mortgage approval ready, and you're not. Don't be gambling. Don't be doing any of that kind of stuff, because the lender will, like, you may lose out on your mortgage then. And look at the reports then that you guys put out, because that has basically, what was it, 2, 3, 4 beds.
We did 1 to 5 plus beds. We're advertising 2, 3, 4 beds, but again, don't be miscued by the media and what the media are putting a massive backdrop on this. And I'm stressing this at the moment. Don't be disillusioned by asking or advertised prices.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ask property professionals. They will give you that advice. They'll give you the advice. If you just go to them and say, what are the average asking, or what are the average sell prices over the last 12 months in the area, you'll highlight the good agents from the bad within that.
Yeah.
If they can answer those market insight details, that and it's really important. And Kieran's touched off a really great point, and what he's doing on the page is commendable to see, because it's real. There's integrity there. you're funneling out the noise, I believe, within the industry of guys who are saying this is house in Blackrock. No, the house is not in Blackrock. The house is in Stillorgan.
Yeah.
You know, and that was how I kind of was like, well, this is interesting, because it needs to be called out. It has to be called out. You can't be falsely advertised. That's like me saying, oh, I'm going out tomorrow and I'm selling newspapers, and I'm actually I'm selling wrapping paper.
Yeah.
And that's probably not the best example, but it's simple. You need the data, you need the stats, you need to talk to people within the industry, experts within the industry, to get an insight into what you're looking for. Kieran, I know you're a busy man, and I know you've got loads of Instagram messages probably to respond to now.
I've about 40 there. I haven't gotten back to yet, but yeah.
Well, listen, don't respond to mine or Ippy's bot. It's all good. Thanks a million for your time today. Really appreciate it, guys. I'm going to leave Kieran's handle, Crazy House Prices, in the link below. And if everyone could jump on and give him a shout. He's given a lot of insights and a lot of comparing and contrasting. I have someone ringing me here also at the same point. So yeah, guys, thanks a million for your time. Kieran, you're a gent, and we'll keep in touch.
Thanks, Kenneth. Appreciate it.